Greetings, one and all. When the NHL decided to expand for the first time since the year 2000 and add the Vegas Golden Knights into the fold, the team from the Vegas Strip has been the subject of critical obliteration from hockey fans all over the world. Whether it's due to the disgust of having another team in the American desert when the original attempt isn't exactly going very strong, how's it going, Coyotes fans, to the choices the team made at the expansion draft, all the way to their opening night roster, the team have been ridiculed and lambasted by so-called, quote, real hockey fans. However, halfway through their inaugural season, the Vegas Golden Knights sit at the top of the NHL standings with no signs of slowing down. The underdog has become the top dog in less than half a calendar year. All the expectations and the predictions made by experts, critics and fans throughout the league, the Golden Knights have defied them all. In defying these proclamations made by the hockey world, the Golden Knights have broken countless records set by previous expansion teams and have the potential to make the playoffs in their inaugural season in the league. Where others saw mediocrity or even downright failure, the Vegas Golden Knights saw the chance to prove the hockey world wrong and be part of something truly special. But how have the Vegas Golden Knights found themselves in pole league position? Is this some sort of fluke, just a lucky streak because the bounces have been going their way? Or has it been more thought out than that? Has this all been part of some master plan drummed up by owner Bill Foley, general manager George McPhee and head coach Gerard Gallant to take the hockey world by storm? Well, let's delve deeper into this to find the true answer. The first point of interest is the 2017 NHL expansion draft, where the Vegas Golden Knights got to choose a player from each NHL roster to add to their team. This cherry picking of other teams' players has been done in some form or another for every single expansion since the league's first major expansion in 1967. So this isn't something new that was brought in to try and give Vegas a head start compared to other expansion teams. However, some fans have been critical of the 2017 expansion draft due to the number of players existing teams could protect, or the lack thereof. Dependent on what combination of players from different positions teams wanted to protect, existing teams could protect either 9 or 11 players in the 2017 expansion draft. Compare that to the 12 or 15 players teams could protect during the 2000 expansion draft, and that opens up a whole bunch of players that are exposed for selection that might not have been under previous circumstances. You could argue that this worked more in Vegas' favour and made it easier for them to select a better team. But what was available to choose in the expansion draft wasn't exactly a Stanley Cup winning roster or anything to write home about on paper. There was a clear lack of top-tier talent on the Vegas roster after the expansion draft. Sure, they got a starting goaltender in Marc-Andre Fleury, a breakout 30-goal scorer last season in Jonathan Marchessault, and a consistent 20-goal scorer in James Neal. But other than that, the team felt void of any superstar talent. Looking at their roster, based on what they had seen previously, nobody expected the Golden Knights to be a Stanley Cup contender right away. Whilst McPhee had an initial Golden Knights roster, he knew he had to make some changes in order to get the team ready for their inaugural season. An interesting stat to note, out of the 30 players that were selected in the expansion draft, only 22 remained part of the organisation when the team played their first game on opening night. 4 players left via trades and 3 left via free agency. Also, in exchange for picking certain players on certain teams in the expansion draft, Vegas were given some pretty sweet rewards for their troubles. Riley Smith, Shea Theodore, and a whole host of draft picks in upcoming drafts were sent to Vegas, which helped to build their team in the present and for the future. Considering where the team currently sits in the league, this strategy has definitely worked and supports the argument that the Vegas management knew exactly what they were doing rather than just being lucky, as they calculated exactly who they were trading away or letting walk in free agency and felt that the returns that they would get would benefit the team in the present and the future more than what they were giving away. However, whilst the expansion draft was important in setting up the team's continued success, it's not the most important cause of their success. I think the biggest and the most obvious reason for the Vegas Golden Knights' success this season is, of course, their on-ice performance. The fact that the players have embraced head coach Gerard Gallant's coaching system has meant that many players are having breakout, resurgent, or even revival seasons in their careers with their new roles on a new team. Just take the season stats of the team's bigger name players and it all comes together. Jonathan Marchessault is looking to finish the season with his career high in points. William Karlsson has taken a huge leap in his production and is going to be a 30-goal scorer for the first time in his career, and James Neal continues to score goals like he has done his entire career, but could even hit the 30-goal plateau for the second time in his last 7 seasons. That's not even mentioning some resurgent guys like David Perron, who is back on track after a few disappointing seasons and is looking like he will smash his career high point total he set 7 years ago, or even Derek England, who is on track to destroy his career high points total, being only 1 point away from his previous plateau halfway through the season. Also, it's important to highlight that 2 of the 5 goaltenders that have played for Vegas since the start of the year have won at least 10 games each this season, with a third out of the 5 goaltenders going undefeated in his 3-game stint with the team. And he was a minor league goalie. Some might argue that all of this is a fluke for the Vegas Golden Knights, as no one could have predicted this explosion of point production from some of the team's now key players, because the players' previous stats wouldn't suggest such an upward trend in production this season. Of course, it is fair to assume that the team's top players like Neal, Marchessault, Fleury and Karlsson would all put up decent numbers this season, but not to this extent. After all, it is just as likely, if not more probable, that the team that looked rather weak on paper showed up and performed poorly in its inaugural season than this unexpected success. It would have been tough to predict some of the numbers Vegas players have put up this year without being considered the laughingstock of the hockey media world. But I think the Golden Knights management knew this exact scenario with the players they picked could well happen, and wanted to challenge the whole on-paper method that experts use to try and predict team success. Provided everything went the way they wanted, I think this has been part of the plan all along. Every player I mentioned a minute ago was picked up specifically by George McPhee and Bill Foley during the expansion draft that this team had. Each one chosen for a specific purpose, either because Foley and McPhee saw them thriving with a new team in a new city, with a new arena and a new culture, or to be used as trade bait to stockpile draft picks for future success of the team. Sure, Vegas made trades to acquire assets in exchange for picking specific players in the expansion draft, and some of the players mentioned above were included in that trading process. But they might have already had their eyes on those specific players and taken those trades as an added boost to the team's future development. Just because they made the trade to pick a certain player doesn't mean they weren't already planning on picking him already. I think it's fair to argue that Vegas had their eyes on some of these players already, and if that turns out to be true or not, Vegas come out as double winners in this situation, because not only have they got a player who is having a career-high season with the team, but they also pick up draft picks and prospects from the player's previous team to ensure they pick that specific player. It's also key to point out that the Vegas Golden Knights have iced 5 different goaltenders this season as a result of the injuries they have faced in net, especially within the opening weeks of the season. However, 3 of the 5 goaltenders that have played for the Golden Knights, an NHL team, this season are minor leaguers or prospect goaltenders. The team's record in those games? 9 wins, 6 losses, and 1 OT loss. Even when they have started goalies who have never played an NHL game before, the team still has a winning record. I guess in Vegas the house really does win. In terms of where I land in this debate, I once again think it's a combination of the 2 arguments that form the whole picture. But I am leaning towards it being more of a well thought out plan by the Vegas management than just a lucky inaugural season for the team. Of course, if the players they trust to be their top contributors have a bad year and put up some awful numbers, then the Golden Knights aren't going to be too high in the league standings. So there is an element of luck or improbability as to the point production and the pucks bouncing their way for many players on the roster. However, I do think that Bill Foley and George McPhee knew exactly who they wanted to pick in the expansion draft to make their team better, regardless of any trades that were offered, who they wanted to trade away for extra picks and prospects, and they knew that the players that they picked would thrive under Gerard Gallant's coaching style. To be honest, rather than a fluke or a master plan, I consider this whole situation to be a calculated risk. there are some elements that are out of the control of those who set the roster up, such as injuries to players, puck luck on the night, or calls by referees that could affect the overall result or success of the team, but the Vegas management picked who they thought were right for their team based on their previous success or their potential to grow as a player, and the Vegas management took a gamble, hoping that the players would live up to the expectations that were placed upon them. And surprise, surprise, they lived up to those expectations and gave a little more just for good luck. You could argue that running any team in any sport is exactly that, making calculated risks of who you sign to your team and hoping those risks pay off. And you're not wrong, but the Vegas Golden Knights had the luxury of a blank canvas on which to work before the expansion draft. No overpaid veterans way past their prime, no prospects with high expectations to succeed, no players in their prime looking for a long-term deal so they can settle down with their families, just a name, a logo, and a desire to create a team that can win it all. Whilst they may not have picked the players that most would have expected or initially predicted, it's safe to say the choices they made have worked out pretty well for Vegas. So ultimately, who was right? The experts and the critics basing their predictions on statistics, or a team who made the best with what they had available to them in a league growing ever more talented? Will the answer change in the second half of the season, or next season, or the season after that? Your guess is as good as mine, because as we've learned, not all predictions are correct. But whether you think the Golden Knights' success this season is a fluke or a master plan, one thing is clear. The new expansion team has taught the hockey world a valuable lesson about how success is waiting for those who work hard when they are out on the ice, give 100% every single shift, and put the team before themselves. Even though their roster may not have any generational talents or superstars earning $10 million a year, Vegas have a group of players who put their heart and soul into every shift, leaving it all out on the ice, which has proven to help the team be a winner. Together, the team has enough grit to de-ice every road in Canada for an entire winter, and it's surprising to see a group of players with more grit than flashy moves succeed in the National Hockey League. Sure, they do have guys who are earning a sweet paycheck and are on $5 or $6 million a year contracts, but the Golden Knights have a group of players who appreciate just how lucky they are to be playing the best sport in the world, and they want to take full advantage of the opportunity to create something special. Some of the Golden Knights roster never made it to the NHL with their previous team. Some were starting to see their door close on the league after half a decade. And some were seen as just not good enough. But with the Golden Knights at the top of the league, they have shown that a group of players with a chip on their shoulder and something to prove to those who gave up on them can take the best hockey league by storm and prove that second chances can do some players the world of good. So I tip my hat to you, Vegas Golden Knights. You have certainly proved me wrong about your chances this season, and I have nothing but respect for what your team has accomplished this season. Here's hoping you have your first trip to the playoffs to cap off your inaugural season in the league in style. And there you go. I now want to pass the question over to you guys. Do you think the Vegas Golden Knights' success can be summarised as a fluke, or has it been part of some master plan all along? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.